Hey guys, in this video I wanted to showcase all of the new Inferno 9 Essence for Crusader. I also want to give a quick update to some of my builds for both PvP and PvE, so I will be showing that at the end of the video, but I just want to start with showing how each of these Essences work and give my feedback and verdict about them. Let's jump straight in and talk about the new Helmet Essence, which is Under Light's Gleam. So this one reads that Holy Banner now grants increased critical hit chance to nearby allies and damage reduction to you, both effects increasing with more allies present. So let's read what this says here in the tooltip, because it actually gives you the numbers here. So it says Holy Banner gives nearby allies 20% increased crit chance and grants you 20% damage reduction for 5 seconds, and each ally within the area increases both effects by 5%, stacking up to 4 times, so you can get up to an extra 20%. So this would be 40% crit chance to allies and 40% damage reduction to you. So it's kind of interesting that this does not give you the critical hit chance and it only gives it to allies. And also from my testing with how this essence works, I was expecting it to be kind of an aura that follows you, kind of like Arrow Keeper, but with how this works, it's more of a instantaneous effect. So whenever you press it, basically whatever allies are within that range are going to give you the extra stacks. So the good thing is the cooldown for this is pretty low, and if we look at the buff bar, this actually lasts pretty much 100% uptime. This is the unstriped value, and then once you're in PvP, it's roughly, I would say, like 4 seconds, maybe 3 seconds downtime before you can press it again. So it's pretty nice to have that consistent uptime. If we just test this essence by myself with no allies here, you can see that in the buff bar I do get the damage taken reduced, I don't get the crit chance, and I also get the attack speed, but this is not from the essence, this is from the Holy Banner increased attack speed from my eternal property here. It's kind of unfortunate that the crit chance does not apply to me. So if I check my crit chance, 32%, and if I press it here, you'll see that the crit chance doesn't increase at all. But then if there are allies, then they would get the crit chance within this. So it's kind of frustrating because if you've watched my PvP videos for Crusader, you'll know that I like to use the other essence for Holy Banner, which is Arrow Keeper, and that one does give you the 100% crit, and it has pretty decent uptime. Obviously not as good uptime as this, but honestly I feel like 9 times out of 10 I would prefer to use the Arrow Keeper essence. So if I could give some feedback to developers, I would say that the crit chance buff should apply to yourself as well, and I would probably buff the crit chance starting value from 20% to 40%, honestly, and then it can stack up. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, overall my verdict for this essence is that it has potential, but it needs a bit of help. The damage reduction, even if I got a few stacks of it, didn't feel as impactful as having the extra damage. Maybe a support build could work with this essence, but it's not really for me, if I'm being honest. So let's move on now and talk about the next essence, which is the chest essence. So the chest essence is for Conjuration of Light. It's called Defend the Downtrodden, and this one reads that it creates a large barrier of light that makes allies directly behind the barrier immune to any damage from enemies in front of the barrier. So if we just equip this one on, and I've been doing a bit of testing with this one, and I think it actually looks pretty cool, but the issue with it is that it's probably one of the worst essence. We do have a few essence for the chest piece for Conjuration of Light, but I feel like none of them are really that great. Maybe this one here that gives you an area and a longer duration of Conjuration of Light could see some play, but these days I feel like the chest piece is just used for Condemn, and it's mainly the Heart of Grandeur or like the Pikachu build. But honestly, let's just have a look at how this one looks like, and you guys can see. So it gives you this huge shield here, but this is actually the max movement speed that I can move at, so it makes you insanely slow. But honestly, the bigger issue with this is that I can't press any of my other skills. So you can see I'm trying to press my Shield Glare and Judgment there, but I couldn't press it while that was active. So yeah, I really don't think this essence is going to be used. When I tried this in PvP, it was probably one of the worst essence ever and one of the worst experiences. I was hoping that at least the barrier could kind of push enemies away, or maybe enemies wouldn't be able to pass through it, but it's very easy for enemies to pass through the barrier or jump over it or just get around it. And also you'll be taking damage from behind as well. So I just don't see any reason to use this essence over the vanilla Conjuration of Light. And it's definitely not an essence that I would recommend you guys to spend your loyalty points on. So let's quickly move on now and talk about the Shoulders Essence. So the new Shoulders Essence that we got, the Death Chime. This one is for Sacred Chain, and it reads that Sacred Chain no longer damages enemies, instead connecting you to party members, transferring some of the damage to you instead. and it gives you some Sacred Chain cooldown. I've tried a lot of Sacred Chain builds in PvP, and none of them were really that good. The problem with it is that it feels like it's very hard to aim the Sacred Chain correctly and actually hit enemies with it. The only essence which I found was pretty good was the last essence that we got, which is the Chain Keeper, and this kind of changes Sacred Chain into a buff that empowers you. This one was okay, but the issue is if you compare it to Judgment Essence with the Yawning Rose, Judgment is just way too good, and I wouldn't take Sacred Chain over it. And it's kind of the same with this one. The good thing about it, at least, is that you don't have to aim it at enemies. Let's have a quick read at the numbers here. So it says that Sacred Chain no longer attacks enemies and instead links you to nearby allies for 5 seconds, causing 30% of the damage taken by linked allies to transfer to you, and then you will take 30% of that transferred damage. So you're not going to take the full 30%, you're going to take 30% of the 30% from enemies. It's a little bit confusing, and it sounds okay, but in practice, it also wasn't that great. If we just equip it here, you can see, so right now I have no allies in range, so it's going to keep giving me this message, but I tried this in PvP. I'll show some clips now on the screen, and you can see that basically you can see I have the chains linking up to enemies here, and while the chain is linked, obviously they will be taking 30% reduced damage because that will be transferred to me. And now, is that good? Honestly, I don't think so. It feels like a bit of a waste of a skill. Maybe again in some very niche support build this could be used. This kind of reminds me of the Martyr Vanguard Charm, which kind of has similar effects. And yeah, you guys know that I didn't really like that charm too much. So this is not really going to be an essence for me, and I just didn't find it that interesting. Let's move on to talk about the new Pants Essence. So this one sounded really interesting on paper. This one's called Journey of the Faithful, and it's a shield charge essence, which says it now charges to a targeted location, damaging and knocking back enemies along your path and granting you damage reduction. If allies are along your path, both you and your allies are granted increased damage reduction. So let's have a look at the numbers once again with this one. So it's for shield charge, like I said. So this says that you get 25% damage reduction for 3 seconds when you charge. And if an ally is along your path, both of you get 35% damage reduction. The patch notes also mention that while you're charging, you're going to be immune to knockback and loss of control, but this needs to be updated here, which they haven't done for some reason. But if we just check this out, you guys can see you have 2 charges of it, and this is what it looks like. So the animation is actually pretty cool, and you do get this kind of blue aura around you, which is the damage reduction, as you can see here. And like the tooltip mentions, you do actually give your allies 35% reduction if you do charge towards them. I did try this essence in PvP, and it was fun to play around with, but once again, I just didn't feel it was super impactful. There's 2 reasons why that is. So the first reason is I feel like a lot of Essence and a lot of classes these days will be immune to knockback, and gems like the Colossus engine, which a lot of people like to use, does also give you immunity to knockback. So if this was a knock-up or like a stun, then this could be more useful in PvP. And the other problem with it is, which in my opinion is the bigger problem, is that you can't use this while you're already CC'd or in kind of a loss of control state. So if this was like a CC break, then it could see some play. But the issue is that while you're locked and not able to use your skills, you can't actually charge through and get out of it, which is a bit frustrating. So once again, unfortunately, this essence was very underwhelming. I kind of had high hopes for this one out of all of the essence, but unfortunately, I don't think this one will see play. If you really do want to play a shield charge build in PvP, then I think the best essence to use for shield charge is probably the Luminous Respite here, which duels your opponent to a match where they can only use primary attacks, and I feel like this one is a lot more fun to play around with compared to this new essence here. So let's move on now to what I think is probably going to be the most useful essence out of this bunch, which is the Mainhand Essence called Soul Purge. So this one's going to be for your primary attack, and it's going to be for punish. Normally, I do like to use the Sacred Fire combo with the Horn Splitter to give an extra burn dot, but this one actually turned out to be pretty decent with the Armor Shatter effect, and the upside of having the Armor Shatter effect is that it also buffs your group as well as you in terms of damage output. So this was pretty good at Mastery 4. before, is 7.6%, and it stacks up to 22.8. I believe it's 3 stacks. So we can test this out very quickly. As you can see, I've taken off all of my gear here besides the main hand, and we can try this out on the dummy. So if I just hit the dummy once, you can see the armor break effect above it, and it actually lasts for a pretty long time here because I have Feasting Barons and also high potency, so against the dummy that has a 0 resistance. So if we take a look at the tooltip here, we can see that this is only 1.5 second base duration, but this can be extended since it's a harmful effect. And like I said, this stacks up to 3 times to 22.8%. So if we hit the dummy once, twice, 3 times, you can see it's stacking there, and the armor break effect is getting shattered, like I said. The only thing that you have to bear in mind is that the highest armor break effect is what's going to get applied. So if you have other people in your party applying armor break, I don't think that this is going to stack with it. And it also doesn't stack with like familiars with lingering wounds. There are some exceptions. For example, the Spectreglass, I believe, is a different bucket from this. But yeah, it's a welcome change because Crusader normally doesn't have armor break essence. So if you were looking to get one of the new essence, say from loyalty bonus or from like the Trial of Hordes chest in your mail, then I would probably recommend you to take the Mainhand Essence. I did a few DPS comparisons between Punish and Sacred Fire. So for Punish, I was using the new Essence, which is Soul Purge, as well as the Observer and the Mainhand Essence, which gives you even more damage. So this one is pretty good as well. And I feel like Punish did perform a little bit better for me. It was roughly 5 to 10% DPS increase. But I've heard some people tell me that they were having better results with Sacred Fire. So I would suggest you guys to try this out for yourself and see just how much damage output you can get and whether or not it's an upgrade. But you always do have to bear in mind that with the armor break effects, they are also going to be beneficial for your party members' damage output. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Finally, let's go over the last essence, which is for the offhand. And this one is for Holy Banner. It's Loretta's Banner, which reads that it increases you and your allies' damage by 6.4% for each ally within the banner. In my opinion, this essence could potentially see some play. It's not gonna be like game breaking or anything, but it could be a pretty decent support essence. Let's say if you don't have the highest resonance or the highest damage output, then it could be a nice buff for your group. And this essence can be used with different helmet essence for Holy Banner. So let's say you want to use Arrow Keeper for the 100% crit. If you want to use Aaron Ignition, the Fire Banner, then this works very well in synergy with those two. The good thing as well with it working with allies is that it can work with gems like the Echoing Shade, which spawn Shadow Clones, which count as allies, or with the Pants Essence, like Light Striders for the horse, then it could work there. Overall, this is a pretty straightforward essence, and it just works on top of the Holy Banner effect that you have. So now that we've gone over all of the essence, I'll give my final verdict. So in my opinion, unfortunately, these essence are all pretty underwhelming. The only one which could see some play potentially is the Soul Purge for some extra DPS boost, and maybe the Offhand Essence here just to get some extra support. With the damage reduction essence, you could potentially make like a support build for Crusader, but I just didn't find it that impactful. I'd rather have like the immunity from the base Conjuration of Light just to mitigate the damage completely rather than reduce the damage. Players in BGs these days just have so much damage and so much mobility and also ways to apply loss of control. I just don't feel like the 20% damage reduction or even 30% damage reduction is going to be that useful for Crusader, which is inherently a class that's going to be a little bit slower unless you're playing like a horse build or something in PvP. So yeah, that's just my verdict there. And now that we've gone over all of the essence, I quickly want to go over kind of the tweaks that I've made to my builds. So you'll be able to see all of my PvP and PvE builds on my channel already, and there hasn't been that many changes that I've made to them. You guys won't really be surprised. There's nothing really game breaking here. So this is the Shield Glare build, which is the DPS build that I like to use. Let's equip this one. So I haven't really made any changes besides the Mainhand Essence. So like I said, I'm using the Soul Purge and also the Observer Essence here, and I've switched my primary attack from Sacred Fire to Punish. And other than that, I've kept everything the same. So the set items are the same. Fragments, 4 pieces, Feasting Barons, and Vithus, 2 pieces each. And then for the essence, we've got Gaze of Wrath for Shield Glare, and also the The sightless choices, which is the shield glare essence that makes it deal more damage the closer you are to enemies. Lofty light, as usual, on the offhand. Heart of grandeur for condemn. And then torrential refrain, which is the key part that's going to resolve all of the dots for you, and also the judgment yawning rose here. So nothing that's really changed here, like I said. And then if you want to use it for dungeons, then you can change the sightless choices here to the light striders. So aside from that, there is another build which Aura Theory Craft. We had a talk yesterday on my live stream, which was pretty interesting, and he mentioned that you could use the Loretta's Offhand Essence with the Fire Banner, which could be pretty nice. So it's kind of a Fire Banner revival, and you could use the Light Strider's Essence, like I mentioned, and also the Echoing Shade to maximize the amount of allies. And this could be really nice. The damage was about, I don't know, 10 to 15% lower than the Shield Glare variation. But if you want to play like more of a support build with Crusader, then this one could also be very good. I'll quickly activate it just to show you guys how it looks. And it's kind of the same. You have the same set pieces here. The only difference is going to be the Aaron Ignition for the helmet, and then the Light Striders for the pants, and the Loretta's banner for the Offhand Essence here. And then obviously we do swap in the Holy Banner, also the Drawn Quarter instead of the Shield Glare. And for both of these builds, like I said, you can play with the Galloping Brilliance Essence for dungeons. Would work extremely well. You can just change the Pants Essence here, or for the Shield Glare, like I mentioned, also change the Pants Essence and change the Holy Banner, which is just a vanilla banner skill, into the Drawn Quarter here. So I think that that's about everything that I wanted to mention. For the PvP build, you could also switch to the Punish Essence that gives movement speed, as well as the Armor Shatter here. This is kind of the PvP build that I like to use with the Arrow Keeper Essence. It's kind of sad that these builds haven't really changed over the past 5 or 6 months, besides adding like an armor break for the Punish here. But yeah, that's kind of my take and my opinion about the new Essence here. Do let me know, as usual, in the comments, guys. Maybe there's something that I missed, or some other build ideas that you guys have come up with. I'd be really interested to know about them. But I think that's about everything that I wanted to cover for Crusader. And I'm most likely going to be switching class to a different class. I haven't 100% decided yet, but I'm liking the look of Demon Hunter. We'll see how it goes. But I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'm going to catch you all in the next one. Peace.